point. Please, let me make
Sure.
my point. Okay? What I'm trying to say is, as an atheist, I can reject both the positive claim that a God exists and that a God does not exist. That doesn't mean I'm taking that. What that means is that I don't believe. Theist means believe. That doesn't mean I'm both a weak theist and a weak atheist. A weak theist is someone who believes. I don't believe. So that doesn't make me a weak theist.
Oh,
That's what
okay.
I'm trying to point.
Okay.
That the mirror type of analogy doesn't work.
There's a huge problem here, and I don't know why you're not seeing it. Maybe I'm explaining it properly, and I'll take the hit for that. I'm trying very, very much to break this down into very simplistic terms here. If you have a proposition and you don't believe it, right, you're calling that weak on that position. You're saying weak atheist. A weak atheist is somebody who doesn't believe the proposition is true. Whatever the proposition is. You're saying that if you don't believe the proposition is true, you're weak on that proposition, correct? That's exactly what you're saying here, Duke. I'm not trying to mislead you. I'm telling you, you're literally saying that if you're not saying that you believe the proposition is true, you're not saying that it's false. You're just saying that you don't believe it. You're calling that weak atheism, weak whatever.
Sure.
Okay, fair enough. You have to apply that ubiquitously. You have to be consistent. If the proposition is different and the proposition is now God does not exist, if you do not believe that, you're now weak, whatever. So the theist would normally affirm, would say that's false, right? A theist would say God does not exist as false. So if you're not affirming that to be the case, that is false, you are a weak theist. This is why it's important to understand.
Sure, okay.
Well, let me finish.
Okay.
This is why it's important to understand agnostic on the proposition.
But you can't be both, a weak theist and a weak atheist.
You can't using your terminology. That's the problem, okay?
No, that's not. No, that's
and
not.
I'm explaining why. Let me explain why. Do you understand what it means when I say agnostic on the proposition, that epistemic position?
When you say agnostic on a proposition, means you don't take a stance on the proposition.
Okay, so that means I neither believe it nor that I disbelieve it, correct?
Correct.
Okay, now, logically, that literally means that you are not BP, weak on that position, right? So if I have agnosticism, and I'm going to do it in the logic form, not believing P or not BP, and not believe not P, right? So I have not BP and not B, not P. Would you agree with that? Okay, so not BP here is weak atheism, not B, not P is weak theism. So agnosticism is just a combined of weak theism and weak atheism. If you look at it logically like that, if you're not affirming anything, you're not saying I take a position, you're agnostic on the proposition. You do accept that much.
Okay, so if you don't take a position on it, then you can call yourself an atheist. That doesn't speak to what you believe or don't believe. You haven't made a statement about it.
Well, you are making a statement. You're making a statement that you don't have a belief, right? That is a position. In the case that you believe that you don't have a belief, right? You do. There's something weird when it comes to dosastic reasoning, that when you believe something, you also believe that you believe it. Just like if you know it. So that's called the K principle. But a normal reasoner would say that if I believe something, a normal reasoner in dosastic logic is I believe that I believe.
Yes.
Okay, that's called a normal reasoner. There's other types of reasoners out there, like Moore's paradox would say that it's raining, but I don't believe that it's raining, which is a weird thing that you can end up with. So it'd be believes P, but doesn't believe that they believe P. Anyways, we're getting sidetracked. So I just want to make sure that you do agree so far, because this discussion is heavily on my use of agnosticism, that there is a position you can have towards the theist proposition, God exists, where
it's not a proposition, and that's where we disagree.
God exists as a proposition. You don't think God exists as a proposition?
Theist is not a proposition.
Theist represents, when you say theist, what you're saying is that person believes the proposition is true. So when you say the proposition of theism, what you're saying is the proposition of theism is that God exists.
And you're talking from that school of philosophy that I'm saying that's not how most people think about it, and I disagree with it.
That makes no difference how most people think of it. This is how it actually is in the field. This is like saying...
Funny, that's wonderful that it's in the field.
But you agree with that. You agree with in the field. Okay, so I just want to make sure that you're not saying that what I'm saying is wrong, though.
We're talking over each other.
Do you agree that what I'm saying is not wrong as it's laid out in the field, in philosophy?
In the field, in your field, you're correct.
Okay, great.
If you're in your field, and your field defines a cow as a two-legged person who puts on clothes and goes to work, then I'm going to agree with you that a human being is a cow in your field. You can make any word mean whatever you want.
Well, these aren't words so much. These are concepts. Again, I don't want to get bogged down. You're focused on the terminology and not understanding the concept, I don't think, right?
No, I understand your concept.
All right, so if you do understand the concepts, if you don't evaluate the proposition, and I call that agnostic on the proposition, you're okay with that, though, right?
Say that again. Are you talking about you personally?
Yeah. If I don't affirm or deny the proposition.
If
I don't believe one way or another.
But see, the thing, you don't have to, and you're still using the word affirm. I'm a little hazy on affirm. I prefer that we do not use affirm. We use something like believe or no.
Again, just habit.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
So I'm saying that if I don't believe either way, that would be in the literature agnostic on the proposition.
But what either way? What do you mean?
I don't believe the proposition is true, and I don't believe the proposition is false.
That a God exists.
Right. That's agnostic on the proposition, correct?
Yes, because I'm an agnostic.
Okay, so well, are you agnostic or you're an atheist or?
I'm both.
You're okay. You're both.
I don't believe that a God exists. I don't believe a God does not exist. And this is the colloquial understanding, the colloquial usage that you're opposed to.
Well, it's not that I'm opposed to the colloquial usage. You have to understand that if you're going to have the colloquial usage, you have to take the baggage that goes along with it, which hopefully we'll get into. There's a lot of baggage that gets into the colloquial usage. My argument's always been this, though, and again, this goes back to the very beginning. We have to agree, and I think you've been kind of wishy-washy on this, no offense, but we have to agree that this is how it is taught and understood to be in the literature.
In your literature.
Okay, so the material facts I'm putting out, people can go verify. We've agreed upon the material facts. Because, again, atheists seem to question that sometimes, and I don't want to go further in the material facts.
Right. I'm trying to tell you I disagree with that.
Okay, so
I disagree with your
What is it you disagree with, then?
I disagree that it's the way that you have it as binary is not necessarily accurate. What I'm trying to say is, in terms of the definition of atheist, please tell me, what is your usage of the word atheist?
Your
usage.
The way I use it is the way it's used. The way I use it is the way it's typically used in philosophy, as per every academic source that I've given you.
Fine, wonderful. So when someone
which is a positive assertion God does exist.
When someone on Twitter is talking to you and refers to you as an atheist, why do you come back and say that they are incorrect?
Because I'm not an atheist, because I don't use those terminologies. That's like saying a theist saying, "Hey, why you do reject a theist telling you that you're a theist because of Romans 1?" You know God exists. You're just rejecting him in your righteousness.
Well, they're using their literature, and now
we're
arguing that their literature is wrong.
Okay, so
they're using their literature.
Okay, but I'm calling you a theist because of Romans 1. Are you a theist?
Please, let me say something. So a theist who believes in the Bible says everyone believes in God. So that means everyone is a theist. This person has what I would say justifiable reason to believe it because they have text that they can reference. I'm arguing that their text is wrong. Would you agree that if I tell them that their text is incorrect?
You can tell them that. I'm going to ask this question again.
Would you agree with that?
Sure. Well, the way they're using it is wrong. Romans 1 doesn't actually interpret that way. Paul wasn't telling atheist people that that everybody believes God exists. He was talking about a very specific or people that came from.
But we know that there are.
Hang on. Let me ask you this. I'm telling you you're a theist because of Romans 1. Are you a theist? Yes or no?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so you're denying that, right? So you're using the same reasoning that I use to say why I'm not an atheist, because I reject your usage. There you go. Right. Now do you get it? That's why I'm not an atheist, because I reject your understanding of it, of colloquial terminology that I think is kind of absurd in a case.
You think that I'm not getting something, but you keep arguing as if I am not attacking you. I'm attacking the text. Okay. I don't agree with your text.
And you don't have to agree with the text, but that doesn't give you...
You don't have to agree with the Bible. So where are we?
But Duke, again,
but this is
you asked me an analogy, and I gave you an analogy. You say, Steve, why do you deny when somebody calls you an atheist? For the same reason why you deny calling yourself a theist. Just because somebody calls you something doesn't make it so.
Okay, so where do we go from there?
Do you agree then, because you're not a theist, I am not an atheist?
So check this out. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Okay, great.
I understand what you're saying, that he believes, this person that believes in God, that believes in the Bible, believes I'm a theist. And he's going to swear that I am a theist. I swear I'm not. So one person says I am, and one person says I'm not. what is this third person supposed to believe? Who's correct? How are we supposed to use the word? Are we just all free to use words just the way that we want? Because that causes confusion.
Okay. The thing is, though, my way doesn't cause confusion because this is not difficult concepts to grasp. Anybody can understand this. Now, listen to me very carefully here. I understand how you use the terms.
Good.
Okay. I don't think it's that hard to understand the way I use these terms. You don't have to use them that way. But to say that people are not smart enough or something to understand the way I'm using these terms, I think is a little bit disparaging for them.
I didn't say that.
So let me ask you this. If I was a biologist, right, and I'm writing on Twitter, right, and I'm using words like theory and I'm using words like evolution, I'm going to use theory to be a well-substantiated body of evidence that explains and makes accurate predictions. I'm going to use evolution to be a change of allelic frequency in any given population from one generation to the next generation over time. That's how I'm going to use these words. Now, let's say you're a creationist and you say, Steve, that's not what these words mean in my terminology. I use colloquial terminology. Theory means guess and evolution means change. I'm going to reject that. Right. That's the same analogy here. I'm rejecting your colloquial use for myself. I'm not saying you have to change it. I'm not saying you have to use something different. But I'm on Twitter. I'm using it the way that I know how to use these words properly in context with the literature. And I want other people to understand how those words are used. In case they ever want to get an education, they can understand the papers, right? They can actually read a paper. Because I will tell you this, Duke. If you go read the literature and you use the terminology the way you do, you're not going to understand any of these things. The paper's not going to make sense to you. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I get it.
Good.
Does the creationist have his own literature and text and institution that he goes to that tells him that theory means a wild guess and that scientists are making a wild guess as to how life has speciated on Earth?
Well, the dictionary says, I literally have somewhere I can find it for you if you really wish. Dictionary says that theory is a guess.
But there are also dictionaries that say that, one, it's a guess, and two, in the realm of science, it means a body of facts.
Okay,
so
but I'm choosing to use it.
Dictionaries that have both definitions,
right, and
use different ways.
Right, and you can use atheism the way you want. That's never been an argument, right? I think that's the point you're missing is you're using it the way you use it. But atheists are now telling me that I have to use it the way they use it. Matter of fact, you started off this discussion going on Twitter. People call you an atheist. Well, I don't have to use it the way they're using it because they're using.
You don't have to, but we're.
Then I'm not and you agree that I'm not an atheist according to philosophical definition. So why would you now argue that something different? I'm a little confused here.
Because I believe that your sources are incorrect.
What makes them incorrect? By what standard?
But by what standard? Okay.
You're saying this is again. I want people to recognize this is how. And no, I'm not trying to be demeaning. I'm really not. But I want people to understand this is how a creationist would argue that evolution doesn't mean what it means, or theory doesn't mean what it means.
No, this is not how. I'm not.
It really is.
Argument. No, I'm not. In fact, you haven't. Listen to what I'm going to say. All right. I'm really glad that you brought up. I'm moving. I have to go to a different room. I'm really glad that you brought up the creationist theory understanding. Because there has to be a greater context to understand why a creationist is so adamant about not defining theory as a body of facts. Because he belongs to an institution that is, man, there's no light on me. He belongs to an institution that wants to destroy the theory of evolution. All of his best interests are attacked by the theory of evolution. So this is not an honest debate about what is the definition of theory, because an honest debate, you just go to the sources and you try to come to someone understanding. This isn't honest. They're trying to destroy science. They're trying to destroy any type of curiosity in how life began on Earth and how it has become diverse on Earth. We're talking about nefarious reasons for not defining theory as a scientific theory.
I'm so glad you brought that up.
My argument to you is I'm not saying this is you, but again, attacking the text, attacking the school of philosophy. If you believe that your literature is really hundreds of years old and it's been used for this long, that helps my case because the United States, I can only speak about this country, is more enlightened about the existence of God than it was 200 years ago. Or 100 years ago, or 50 years ago. I mean, you can just.
I'm so glad you brought that up because this goes.
Let's talk about homosexuality.
Well, no, I'm not going to change the topic into something.
No, I'm not changing the topic. I'm talking about words and usage.